Well, I think I've done it. The ultimate Block Glock. And what do I mean by that? This is the most square Glock you could possibly conceive of. But it's not just about it being square. This is my go-to pistol for any situation. I love this gun, and honestly, all the accessories and everything else included have really made it a complete package. And I thought I would share with you exactly how I'm running this pistol to give you some ideas about what you could do with your Glock, especially if you want it to be as blocky as possible, but also to give you some ideas about good quality accessories that have worked for me very well and provide me with confidence that this pistol is going to defend me and my life if needed. Now, of course, I'm Magic Prepper and I'm here with MidwayUSA. And basically, if you're worried about my background, I am a prepper fringe weirdo, which is fine because I think a lot of you are too. And of course, here in the United States, we enjoy being self-reliant, and that is something that I'm working on being better at. Part of self-reliance, though, is understanding that the police aren't always able to come save you, especially if you live in a rural environment like I do here in North Dakota. So we have to be a little bit more particular about how we're going to defend ourselves and what pieces of equipment we're going to use in that regard. And the Glock, although you might not like it because of ergonomics, aesthetics, or even just because it's too popular, it really is still the gold standard of defensive pistols because of its track record of reliability, the logistics system that supports it so well, and the fact that they're just good pistols. I don't like them better than some of my other guns, but I like how practical they are. And that's what it really comes down to in the end. So this particular Glock started life as a Glock 45. As you can see, it looks like a Glock 45. However, the slide will reveal it is in fact a Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS slide. Why is that? Because I go through a lot of guns and I switch things out and I try to figure out what works best for me. And what I ended up with is a Glock 45 frame with my Glock 19 slide because I had the suppressor height sights installed with the red dot optic, and that is what I ended up liking the best. However, I did not like the frame on the Glock 19 Gen 5 because it's just a little too short for me personally. It might be perfect for you. I like this setup the best. So what do we have here? Okay, everything is stock from the factory. I'm really not the guy who suggests doing a tons of aftermarket stuff to your Glock pistol. You can, and you should enjoy that process if you'd like. Something I've considered doing would be a Radian Ramjet afterburner. And the reason for that is because they seem to be well reviewed. People are saying they're reliable, and they do in fact decrease recoil. So that might be something worth trying. And if you think it is, let me know down in the comments because I'm interested in giving it a shot. However, I like to keep my internals factory, mainly for the fact that this is how the gun was designed to be reliable. And as soon as you start changing out apex trigger systems and recoil spring assemblies, and you start changing out every single different lever and button that's within the gun, often people run into reliability issues. And because this pistol is specifically made for defensive purposes, and it's a Glock, which in many ways to me feels just like a tool more than a gun, I don't feel the need to do those things. I just want the gun to work and to be as reliable as humanly possible. So, like I said, Glock 19 slide, Glock 45 frame, everything else is factory, even the trigger, nothing's been done there. One thing I will say is if you shoot a lot, you will notice these triggers do improve. And this particular gun has a much better trigger than it did when I originally got it because of how much I've shot it since. So, on top here, we have an Aimpoint Acro P2. Now, this might not be the best pistol optic on the market, but it is from a highly regarded manufacturer who knows what they're doing when it comes to making red dot sights. And it is an enclosed red dot optic, which means it has glass on the front as well as on the back. Why does that matter? Well, if you ever carry your gun outside the waistband in a holster and it's raining or snowing or dusty or anything along those lines, it can occlude the emitter when you go to pull out your pistol. I had that happen to me recently, which can kind of prove the point that this is an issue. You don't generally have that problem with an enclosed red dot optic, so I do like that feature. The other reason I like the Aimpoint is because it's relatively durable, or it has been for me, while also being from a highly regarded manufacturer. I know that that might not be as important to some people, but when it comes to a pistol that I specifically rely on for concealed carry as well as any other home defense style purpose, I want to make sure the equipment that's attached to it is top notch if possible, right? And you know what? There's other great manufacturers out there who do make very high quality optics at a much lower price point, such as Sig Sauer has some excellent new optics, which I've been having a very good time with. I also know Vortex's new Defender series has been working very well for me. Holosun has some excellent pistol mounted optics with enclosed options. So there's a lot of good manufacturers out there that would probably save you some money and be just as reliable, in all honesty. The one thing they don't have on the Acro P2 though is how square it is. And that's important when you want your Glock to be a block. So I use the MOS system. I bought the Aimpoint Acro plate directly from Aimpoint because some of the MOS plates have been known to have issues. This one hasn't given me any problems. So I can say, at least after many rounds, at least 1,500, probably more, but at the minimum 1,500, that this Aimpoint plate directly from Aimpoint has held up to abuse without issue. And we're talking shooting this thing in negative 30 degrees, where metal becomes a little more brittle. So things are good to go in that department. You can see that the optic itself has some wear on it. It has seen its share of abuse as well. I don't drop these things or throw them at bricks or anything like that just to find out what happens, but I do put them through their paces and I use them as intended. And in that process, stuff gets banged around. So far so good. No issues there. You can even see my witness mark here on the mounting screw has not moved once at all. Okay. Now, in order to accommodate the optic while maintaining that necessity of reliability, I wanted to make sure I had redundancy of sighting systems. So I actually installed the AmeriGlow suppressor height sights. You see them here on the front as well as on the back. And what that does is it allows me to get a co-witness through the red dot optic. So if the red dot were to go down, the battery died or the electronics failed or something happened, the glass shattered and I can no longer really see the actual red dot itself, the sights are still there, which can be seen directly through the optic window in order to give me that secondary sighting system. So that redundancy to me is very important on a pistol that I find to be a defensive handgun, right? If I only had irons, I'd be comfortable with that because irons don't just fail, right? I have seen irons fly off of Glocks. I have seen irons fly off of other guns after lots of abuse, right? But that's a very rare occasion. Red dots, however, fail regularly. So having a way to aim without the necessity of the dot is important in my opinion. And that's what these AmeriGlow suppressor height sights do. They're blacked out sights. They're not tritium. They don't have any level of paint or anything else on them in order to draw your eye because I don't want to be distracted by the sights. I want to see the red dot. But if I don't see a dot, I still have the sights to fall back on. Another consideration there is that if you get suppressor height night sights in order to be your backup sights, it makes sense in the sense of wanting to be able to still use the gun at night if this sight goes down. But if you are going to use this gun with night vision in mind, those tritium inserts can be problematic because of how much they mess up the sight picture. They actually give off a lot of light and your night vision will pick that up and you won't be able to see your sight picture very well at all. So that is a consideration that you should make. And the other thing that I would keep in mind is that being able to see these blacked out sights is not an issue at all if I'm using them in tandem with the weapon mounted light. So the only thing night sights are good for is at night. But if I'm using my light because I need to be able to see what I'm aiming at, suddenly I don't need night sights. So that's just something to keep in mind. And these sights are much cheaper because they don't have those tritium inserts. Now, what about the light itself? Okay, the light itself is a Surefire XR1A. Now, this is a new light from Surefire. As you see, it has two lamp heads right here. And the reason I'm using this is because it accomplishes a few goals. One, it keeps the package compact. When it comes to concealed carry, I've found that my handgun not having a protruding light allows me to be much more comfortable. I don't have to have as large of a holster, I don't have as large of a footprint, and it gets a little bit easier to do things like sitting down while carrying the pistol because you have less length going into your pant line. And so I prefer flush fit lights for concealed carry specifically. Now, this light is not just flush fit, but it's extremely powerful. And the XR1 is a very impressive light. It puts out 800 lumens, which right now, compared to other offerings on the market, is pretty much top dog. Not to mention it's very focused as well. It has a high candela, which means that beam is actually hitting what it is you want to aim at versus just flooding the room. So this is a very good light, a very expensive one, but a very good light. Now, it does have an interesting system where it uses a battery that actually is proprietary. So that's where some people might not find this light to be very ideal. However, it does last a long time. You generally don't need your battery to do a lot more than just keep your light on for a few seconds at a time. And what's nice about these batteries is that they're rechargeable and they're swappable. So if you have more than one of these, you can actually put a new one in without removing the light from the gun, as you can see right here, and then recharge the other one while you have the new or fully charged one reinserted. So that is nice and easy, right? And of course, on camera, I probably won't be able to do this properly because that's just how my life works. There we go. And now we have the light back up and running. So the battery thing, yes, logistically, it's a little bit more complicated, but it is effective in the sense of providing enough power for that level of output, which you just can't quite get with your standard CR123 batteries. So this package overall covers all the bases that I asked for out of a pistol. Extremely reliable. The logistics system is there because it's a Glock. The additional accessories are from high quality manufacturers, which means I have more confidence in them to do what they're expected to do during a stressful situation. And I have redundancy in the sense of the sights in order to make sure that if the electronics fail here, I still have a way to aim properly. And of course, with the Glock 45 style setup right here, you have 17 round magazines. And yes, the pistol's clear. These things are important, I know, but it is something worth considering when it comes to safety. 17 round magazine means a lot of capacity. So that's my setup. This is my go-to pistol when it comes to just about anything. And this might change in the future as I often change things around in order to experience what may be better or find out it actually wasn't, which is important too. But I just wanted to share this in case anybody's trying to get inspiration for a go-to pistol. Because honestly, there are pistols I like better. I have a SIG P229 Legion. It feels amazing in my hands. It shoots like a dream. It's a really nice gun. But this Glock, it's gonna run 100 yards with a factory Glock. Let's go. Not bad, right? And yeah, it's not as nice to shoot, doesn't feel as good ergonomically. It is boring, but sometimes boring is what we need because boring has a better chance of saving your life in many situations just because there's not much to it. Did I mention that these have less than 40 parts inside of them? They're very easy to work on and very easy to stock up on spare parts if needed, which we can discuss in a future video. So, let me know your thoughts down below. What's your go-to pistol? I mean, I don't like having to choose a Glock. I don't like the idea of being so basic, but there's a reason why it's so basic. There's a reason why it's so universal. You can say the same thing about an AR-15, but most people aren't arguing that point anymore. However, this is still pretty contentious, which I understand. Also, if you want to have the most Block Glock, the most blocky Glock you can have, now you know what to do.